Right, hello and welcome to Biz Talk, and this is a program which we will discuss on matters concerning the national key economic areas and companies that involves directly or indirectly to the economic transformation program. And I am your host, Suryati Sanusi, and today we are talking about expansion of distance learning, and today I have Professor Dato Dr. Ansary Ahmed, the President and CEO of Asia E-University, or AeU in short. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Okay, Dato, let's talk a little bit on you and how did you get involved with AeU?
It started about 8 years ago when I was still in another university.
Okay.
And the Ministry of Higher Education at that time referred to me about the possibility of involving or conceptualizing a project on distance education,
Right.
which cuts across Asia. Of course, I was quite excited by it and decided to get involved with it. And I was involved in organizing the workshop and roundtables with an organization called the Asia Cooperation Dialogue.
Okay.
Now, the Asia Cooperation Dialogue is a very interesting organization. It was set up in 1998 as a result of the currency crisis that the Asian tigers were facing at that time.
Okay.
It was the idea of Thaksin, who was the Prime Minister of Thailand at that time,
Yes.
that maybe we should have a dialogue on how Asian countries can come together to address this issue of the currency crisis.
Right.
We were in the dialogue format until 2002, and at the end of 2002 there was a meeting held in Chang'an in China, in which they said that do we continue with this Asia Cooperation Dialogue or do we close shop because we already addressed the currency issues.
Yes.
So at that meeting it was decided that maybe we can do what we say mutually beneficial projects under the ACD platform.
Right.
So they asked the respective members. At that time there were 16 members, 16 member countries. Can you propose, projects which will be mutually beneficial to the people of Asia?
Right.
So I was contacted to say that can we do something on education?
Right.
So the idea of e-education came up. And Malaysia actually proposed 3 projects, but one of them was e-education.
Okay.
And we took this proposal to our ministerial meeting, foreign ministerial meeting in Islamabad in 2005. And that's where we presented the idea and the concept of the Asia E-University.
Right.
And since then I've been involved with Asia University from concept right until now. We have been in operations for 4 years.
What makes you think that Malaysia will be able to do this?
It's because I think at that particular time there was no other country, even though Korea was very much advanced in terms of technology, in terms of e-technologies and tools, etc. kind of thing, but they were more interested in developing ICT generally. They were not interested in education. And Malaysia was at that time also planning to become an education hub.
Yes.
So we felt that one way to become an education hub was to have also an extension, an arm, a distance education arm, as opposed to just bringing in foreign students to learn in Malaysia and become international students in Malaysia.
Right.
So that's another way of getting another, extra market share of the global market share of international students.
Right. And when you first started, how did you see a model? You adopt model from somewhere?
The model basically is based on several different studies which I did with different models throughout the world, and also on the model that I was quite familiar with, which is Open University Malaysia at that time. And what we were doing basically is to say that we understand the Asian psyche. The Asian student does not want totally online learning because he feels very distant from his sifu, from his teacher. He likes to have some interaction. They like some social interaction as well.
Yes.
So we develop a blended model. We call it a blended model, in which there's a lot of the knowledge aspect comes online, but a lot of the interactivity still takes on in what we call learning centers.
Right.
So we bring them at scheduled times to the learning center to interact with what we call the academic facilitator, so that they also have time to interact with their peers and interact with somebody who's more knowledgeable to guide them with their learning, to confirm what they're learning, to clarify issues and fundamentals and concepts kind of thing. So that was how we developed the pedagogy itself. So it is not totally online, although they can go and be virtually online if they opt to do so.
Right. And you mentioned you somehow adopt a part of the module from OUM. Why do we need another platform for e-learning? Can't we just, we have a platform already with OUM? Your opinion?
Okay, I was also involved with the concept and establishment of the OUM. I was a co-founder of OUM.
Right.
OUM was established primarily to address the working people of Malaysia.
I see.
And it was more focused on the local market. And when we started this project in 2004, 2005, it was more to address the international market rather than the local market.
Right.
Saying that, can we take our local programs internationally? That was the challenge. Can we take our local programs internationally? And how could we do it leveraging on education technologies?
Okay.
So we had to blend the models and modify the models accordingly to reach out to a wider audience.
Right. And you mentioned local module.
Yeah.
Right. So is it working out with the international students?
Oh yes, it is working out very well. I think even OUM has gone international in certain ways. But the fact that we were established under the Asia Cooperation Dialogue,
right,
with the support of 32 governments,
right,
that puts us in a different kind of position. And we are a unique university in the world. There's no other university in the world which, in terms of concept, in terms of establishment, was conceptualized and established outside Malaysia,
right,
supported by 32 countries, but the 32 countries allowed Malaysia to be the prime mover,
right,
and move this university for the people of Asia.
Right.
So that's a very different kind of concept.
Okay, yeah. We also have a clip on AeU, so probably people could actually see what AeU is. So let's take a look at the clip right now.
E-learning refers to the use of electronic media information and communications technology, or ICT, in education. E-learning is a method of studying that is not only tailored specially for distant learners, but this method also suits those with full-time jobs or married individuals. Basically, e-learning is a method of studying for anyone who is hungry for knowledge but has limited time for classes. Though e-learning is a virtual method of studying, it doesn't stop the Malaysian Qualification Agency, or MQA, from running their annual quality checks on the subjects and courses that is delivered by the institution. This is one of the efforts of assuring the quality of education that are received by the students. Asia E-University, or AeU, is a dual-mode international university set in Asia by Asians for Asia under the Asia Cooperation Dialogue, or ACD. Its establishment is an initiative of Malaysia as the prime mover for dual-mode learning with the support of 32 ACD member countries, as confirmed at the Islamabad 2005 and Doha 2006 ACD ministerial meetings. AeU comprises of 8 schools with over 20 learning centers around the world. Logically, no education institution is complete without an organized selection of information resources made accessible. The AeU Library, or better known as Asia E-University Knowledge Center, offers an excellent combination of traditional and electronic information resources in a well-designed, conducive living library ambience with the interface for the e-library in a virtual environment for the e-learning community. The AeU Library takes the responsibility of providing a comprehensive collection in print, electronic, and multimedia formats to meet the information needs of the university.
Print or an e-library, I think an e-library is much more easy to maintain because you don't have the people to come in and you don't need so many staff, you know, everything can be done online, and the library will be at everyone's fingertips 24/7, anytime, anywhere. They can anywhere where you have the internet connection, you can have access to the library. Whereas if it's a print library, a book library, you have to come, you have to borrow the book, select, and get it checked out. Although here we have a machine to check out the books, and machine to return the books. But maintenance-wise, staff and all that is much easier to maintain an electronic library.
Asia E-University programs are delivered through open and distance learning, or better known as ODL. ODL is one of the most rapidly growing fields of education, and its potential impact on education delivery system has been greatly accentuated through the development of internet-based information technologies, and in particular, the World Wide Web. For those working adults or people with family, AeU would be your best choice to further your education. Reason is simple. Firstly, you will have the mixed mode of teaching, which is the traditional way of teaching whereby you go to class probably once a month, and you also have the 24 hours access to their e-learning portal. And AeU is also known as one of the aggregated institutions that offers all kinds of interesting modules and also courses for you to further your future.
Right, that was an interesting clip. And I would like to know, what does it mean by 32 countries, one university?
The slogan we use, one university, 32 countries, basically to say that, you know, there are 32 countries behind us who support us, who were there, what I would consider the founding fathers of the university. And what we're trying to develop over time, we are still a work in progress, is to give what do you call it, one university experience right across the 32 countries. So no matter where you are studying, you still get the same one university experience.
And
that's what
syllabus.
the one university, 32 countries means.
Right. Could you name a little bit on the countries that involved with the
ACD? Yeah. The ACD actually is anchored by three what you call regional blocks. ASEAN. And then we have, ASEAN is one of the biggest blocks there. Then we have the GCC, which is made up of the Middle Eastern countries. Then we have SAARC, which is the Indian subcontinent. And then in addition to that, we also have the Central Asian countries. And then we have also Russia, Mongolia, China, and Japan. That makes up the ACD countries. So it cuts across regional boundaries, and it represents about 70% of the Asian countries.
Okay. We'll take a short break right now, and we'll continue discussing on this matter right here on Biz Talk. Right, thanks for staying with us on Biz Talk. If you have any comments, you can email us at biztalk@bernama-tv.com, or you can tweet us at biztalk502, or you can call us at 0326937008. And today we're talking about expansion of distant learning with me, Professor Dato Dr. Ansary Ahmed, the President and CEO of AeU University. Right, before we went for a break, we were talking about 32 countries, one university, your slogan. And what makes all this country would like to work with AeU?
That's an interesting question, because when we first started conceptualizing this and having our workshops and roundtables, this question was asked frequently on why should we support the establishment of another university when we have such kind of universities in our own countries, or sufficient number of universities in our country. But the the consensus that was built was just to say that you may have your own respective universities in your country. But if you look right across developing Asia, the age participation rates and adults who need to go back to universities are not given the opportunity to do so. And therefore this university was set up to leverage on technology to allow us to reach out across the borders of Asia, to allow them to share their experiences, because we like to produce a global Asian rather than a parochial Asian. So that was one of the reasons of establishing such a university. Secondly, it was felt that, you know, the countries can actually share their experiences together through this common platform, and offer this to the Western world, to make the Western world understand what Asia is all about, what Asian value is about, Asian culture is about, Asian history is about, so that they understand what being Asian. So that's another reason why this common platform was established, and why they was supporting it. And the third reason was because Asia itself is made up of developed Asia, developing Asia, and least developed Asia. So we're looking at how could we use such a common platform for the developed Asia to help the less fortunate in developing Asia. So that was also another reason why they all agreed ultimately to form this university under the Asia Cooperation Dialogue.
Was it hard to get their support on this?
Honestly, not really, because when we could put forward the rationale for the establishment of the university, they could see the benefits, even though, you know, they may be developed.
Okay.
They could see such benefits of engaging themselves with this platform.
Right.
And in the least developed too, they could see the advantage of engaging this platform.
Right.
Basically, the developed nations could be contributors, and the developing nations and these nations could be recipients of such kind of contribution through a common platform. That was the idea.
And they trust Malaysia to be the one heading this.
Yeah, it's because Malaysia has always played a very fair game in the international arena, and we were seen as fair players, and we were seen as what they call players who would give equity, access and equity to the people of Asia.
Right.
And the other thing that I think they convinced them was that Malaysia was prepared to support the idea fully, even by financing it fully.
Right, okay. Let's talk about AeU and the courses or programs that you have. Probably you can mention a little bit.
In AeU, the way we develop our programs and courses is very much not restricted to local needs, because we are supposed to serve the Asian, what they call learner and Asian community. And therefore, we have to look at programs and courses which will fit that need.
Okay, interesting.
And as a start, we looked at what would be required in Asia.
Right.
And what they call the feedback that we got from them is that we should be concentrating on management courses, business courses, IT programs, as well as looking at professional and executive education.
For example?
For the working adults, meaning that these are adults who need to attend short courses, vocational-based courses, etc., kind of thing, which could be conducted through the technology that we have for them to upskill and upgrade themselves.
Right.
So we focused ourselves in these three main areas.
Okay.
And the other thing that we did from the very beginning is that we discovered that many of the countries were looking for postgraduate programs rather than undergraduate programs. So we started, oddly enough, by running the master's programs and the PhD programs rather than the bachelor's programs. So unlike most universities, we start with diploma and undergraduates, we started with a PhD and a master's.
Right.
So we have been very much more a postgraduate university rather than an undergraduate university. Even now, our profile of programs and courses is heavily slanted towards the postgraduate rather than the undergraduate.
Right. And when you say you offer the PhD course, and I'm guessing the module from 32 countries, or the module were created by AeU with the 32 countries that you have?
There are two ways in which we develop our programs and modules kind of thing. In one way is basically locally sourced, and we offer it internationally.
Right.
Another way is we get international requests of developing programs, and then we develop such kind of programs. So we develop both in both directions, outwardly and also inwardly, the way we look at it. But ultimately, each program is what they call approved by the authorities in Malaysia.
I see.
By the Malaysian Qualification Agency and by the Department of Private Education, Ministry of Education.
Right.
And that gives us the credibility as well for us to offer accredited programs right across Asia.
Right.
Because our own authorities have got memorandums of understanding, etc., kind of thing with such countries. At the same time, we also apply to the respective countries to accredit our programs in those countries.
It does.
So we do both matters.
Right. Okay. Well, e-learning doesn't come without issues, and we do have Professor and Dean Abdul Rahim Bakar from UPM, and let's listen to his comments on e-learning.
One is that there is limited social interaction, so we are dealing with machine only. So we don't have face communication. I cannot see how the professor react to my questions, whether he likes my questions. I do not see my classmate react to my questions, because this is between you and the machine. So you cannot build up a social network. You know that person, but because if it is online, you know that person, but you do not know the character of that person. That's one cons. Another one is that technology cost and scheduling, because of course when you want to go online, you have to have all those capacity, internet connection, you have to increase the capacity of internet access, you have to have some kind of software that is needed, and of course if I'm a student, I have to learn again to use those softwares and programs. So this is another drawback. Then some instructors would say that you cannot have an effective assessment. Cheating, it is said by some professors through the studies, it is said that cheating is much easier online rather than face-to-face. Because face-to-face you can control, but online, even if you say that this final exam is not an open book exam, but of course student can read the books, and nobody knows. This is one. Then it is also said that another problem is that probably it will be problematic for instructors, because you have to entertain requests, questions, inquiry from students 24 hours, 7 days a week. Rather than traditional classroom, when students ask you questions, one student asks you questions, then I can provide the answers to be heard by, let's say, 80 students in the class. All the 80 students will get the answer. In this particular case, probably I have to answer to that particular student, and probably we can broadcast the answer, but there is no interaction between the two parties, the professors and students, if we are wholly online. If it is hybrid program, then there will be interaction. As I said earlier, professors allocate 60 to 90 minutes a week, then you can have interaction.
Right, he mentioned a few issues there. So let's take the first one. He says, there's less interaction when we go online. Is that true, in your opinion?
Yes and no. It depends on what kind of interaction you're looking for.
Okay.
If you're looking for human-human interaction, of course it's not there.
Right.
All right. But if you're looking for peer interaction, it is there. If you're looking for instructor-student interaction, it is there. So it depends on. So you have to define the kind of interaction you're looking for.
Right.
But I think what he was alluding to was that it's just a machine-human interaction, which is not true, because it is not a machine you're interacting with. You're interacting with other peers, and interacting with the instructor, etc., kind of thing. So I think that's a fallacy.
Right. And the other one, internet access, which he mentioned not everyone can have internet access, especially in the rural areas, and also software. They need a special kind of software to go and study online, in your opinion?
Again, when you refer to studying online, as I mentioned to you earlier, the approach that we use is a blended approach.
Okay.
All right. So you do not rely on your online material 100%.
Okay.
You still have your face-to-face interactions, you still have peer interactions, you still have instructor-student interactions, etc., kind of thing.
Right.
Now, when you talk about technology and technology endowment kind of thing, of course, in AeU University, we are very sensitive towards it, because we are supposed to bring learning to the people of Asia.
Right.
And it's not just people of Malaysia, people in the rural areas, the remote areas, etc., kind of thing. It's right across in Asia, and there are more rural and more remote areas than what you find in Malaysia.
Right.
And we're reaching out to them.
Okay.
The reason is because we use appropriate technology. All right. And the technology that we use does not require such kind of broadband requirements. It doesn't require special software. You supply the material, etc.
Right.
It doesn't require special skills. It only takes you about an hour or so to master how to use it, etc. So the bottom line is that you make your e-learning as user-friendly as possible.
Right. And that's what you do now.
Requiring as minimum what they call investment in technology as possible, and also making sure you blend it correctly with the right amount of face-to-face that goes into it. Once you have that, you'll find that you're giving a much more enriching experience than sitting in the lecture room listening to a boring professor.
All right. Okay, we'll take a short break right now, and when we come back, we'll continue discussing on this matter right here on Biz Talk. Right, thanks for staying with us, and if you have any comments, you can email us at biztalk@bernama-tv.com, or you can tweet us at biztalk502, or you can call us at 0326937008. And today we're talking about expansion of distant learning with Professor Dato Dr. Ansary Ahmed, the President and CEO of AeU University, or AeU in short. Right, before we took our short break, we were talking about what Professor Abdul Rahim mentioned, a few issues on e-learning. Now, part of it is also on examination and cheating. Is that true?
Not really, because as I mentioned just now, our programs are all approved by the Malaysian Qualification Agency, the MQA. And MQA has certain standards in terms of assessment. the amount of what they call weightage you can give for continuous assessment, the amount of weightage you can give for a final exam.
Right.
We also are very conscious of the fact that much of Asia is still new towards this way of learning.
Yes.
It's a new paradigm for them. And therefore what we have done is, in our assessment mode, we have divided it into two components. One component is what we call a continuous assessment, which is very common to most universities, which is the formative aspect of assessment. And here you're given assignments, you're given take-home exams, you're given homework, etc. kind of thing, and you assess accordingly. And that is not done online, that is done physically.
Oh.
All right. The second component is where you have the component of the sit-down exam.
Okay.
Now we have got sit-down exams at our learning centers. So each online student will have to come to the examination center to take the exam.
Right. What if they're from overseas?
They still go to, we have had students taking the examinations in our embassies overseas.
Oh.
We have used other universities overseas for the examinations, etc.
That's very convenient.
Yes, it's very convenient. There's no issues at all. So as far as assessment is concerned, the modes of assessment, the instruments for assessments are no different from a conventional university.
Right.
So the quality of the degree is no different than from a conventional university. That's how we ensure it.
Okay, the other one was inquiries for the lecturers. They have to be online 24/7. Is that true?
Not true at all. I think none of us can be online 24/7, you know. But there are two ways of addressing it. One is you can outsource. There are certain companies in India which actually can outsource the tutors, online tutors.
Right.
And they can handle the inquiries 24/7 because they've got people on shifts.
Yes.
They've got professors working on shifts handling your questions, etc. kind of thing.
Right.
But we don't do it.
Okay.
Some top universities in the world do that kind of thing.
So how
in our case, what we do is schedule times in which that you come online and interact with your academic facilitator, what we call the online facilitator.
Right.
So scheduling times is the way to do it,
right.
Because that is more convenient for both the student as well as the instructor.
Right. Okay, let's go back to AEU. And part of the clip that we saw when my colleague went there, she mentioned open distant learning. Probably you can explain a little bit on that.
Okay, there are two things there. When you say open, what do you mean by open? When you say distance learning, so one is actually a philosophy, the other one is a methodology.
Right.
All right. Open is a philosophy.
Yes.
Meaning that in the non-open, in the conventional way of admission, this we're talking of admissions into higher education institutions.
Right.
You have to have certain number of credits.
Yes.
All right. At STPM or qualification or diploma, etc. in order to get into a bachelor's program, or you must have a bachelor's in order to get into a master's program, etc.
Right.
kind of thing. That's what you have, conventional degree qualification before you can enter into your higher education that of your choice, kind of thing. When you say open, you're saying that now you don't need that, all right? But you need a certain amount of education. So what we say when you say open entry, basically we're saying that, you know, if you have got past work experience, if you can show evidence of past learning, but you must have a basic as well.
Okay.
In Malaysia, the basic is to enter into an undergraduate program is having a PMR.
Yes.
So you can read and write and your brain works, kind of thing.
Yes.
After that, you've gone to work a number of years.
Yeah.
And you're 21 years of age. And you can prove to us that, you know, from the time you left school and 21, you've been engaged in work.
Yes.
And you've been doing work which is relevant to the field that you want to major in now, the study that you want to major in now. We will look at all this evidence and then say that, all right, you qualify to enter under the open entry.
I see.
To come into the program. Now it's very useful for people who have to drop out for one reason or another in their education. It also applies at master's level.
Okay.
But there you need an STPM and you must be 30 years of age before you can enter into such kind of program.
Right.
Again, showing relevant work experience, learning experience to the degree that you want to major in.
Right.
Now that's the open, is the philosophy.
Right.
When you talk about the distance, is basically the methodology.
Yes.
Distance basically is saying that, you know, you are at a distance from the instructor. Now, if I'm here sitting and instructing and you are next door, you are distant.
Okay.
All right? If you are 1,000 kilometers away, you're still distant.
Yes.
So basically, you're not in front of me, and that is why you're distant. So that's what we call open distance learning, a combination of philosophy and methodology.
Right. That's the difference between studying conventional way of education, yeah? And the difference between ODL and PJJ.
PJJ actually is the acronym for pembelajaran jarak jauh, okay, which is basically distance learning. There's no difference. So it's just the Malay version of distance learning, or DL. So there's no difference. But the way distance learning is conducted in Malaysia, PJJ is conducted in Malaysia, is that the pensyarah jalan jauh, In other words, the lecturer goes to a learning center to do the lectures face to face.
Right.
All right. But in the case of ODL, the pensyarah does not jalan jauh. He or she stays put, and the message goes across via the technology.
Right.
So that's the difference between PJJ and ODL.
Which is much easier and much convenient, right?
Yep.
Okay. So how does the ODL support AeU learning process of a student?
Or how do we support the learning process through the ODL mode? Okay, we do it three ways.
Okay.
We have three critical elements in terms of our learning support. Number one is the knowledge. All right. How is the knowledge delivered to the student?
Right.
We do it entirely online. All the material is prepared and sent to you way before you come to the classes.
Right.
So you have access to it, you can read it, etc. kind of thing, try to understand. There's pre-test and post-test to it, so you can test yourself where you are, etc. So you can do a lot of self-managed learning on your own with the material that we sent out.
Okay.
So that's the first one. So we send out the content. We do it such a way that you do not require to buy any textbooks.
Right.
It's all there.
Right.
In fact, you have more than what you need. We supply that to you. We also have a digital library that you can access anywhere, anytime, 24/7. You do not have to come to the university to access the digital library. You can be in Timbuktu, you can still access the digital library.
So that's
one. That's part one. Part two is where we bring you face to face with the instructor, what we call the academic facilitator. We call it facilitation because we don't believe in teaching.
Okay.
We have, our philosophy is more on learning rather than teaching, because we want the students to learn. So we don't call the students students, we call them learners.
Okay.
And we don't call the instructors instructors, we call them academic facilitators. They facilitate your learning. We believe the time is over when the professor knows everything. There's so much knowledge out there that he can only facilitate you on acquiring that knowledge. How hungry you are for the knowledge, you will gain more and more knowledge according to your hunger.
Right.
So a less hungry person, a less thirsty person will gain less than somebody who's much more hungry.
Yes.
So we bring you face to face to facilitate your learning, for you to come and confirm what you've learned is correct.
Right.
For you to clarify issues which may be cloudy, for you to understand the concepts kind of thing.
Right.
For you to also interact with your peers.
Yes.
And share your sad stories with your peers, you know, that this assignment is too difficult, etc., and all that kind of thing. Have a teh tarik with your friends and say what you want to do, have a smoke or whatever kind of thing. So that human interaction is critical as well in the development of the individual. What the professor was referring to as no human interaction, machine human interaction. It's not true. When you have these face-to-face sessions, you're having this kind of social interactions because you're very conscious that we have to be human-centric. So you have to introduce that component.
Right.
The third part of it is what we call the online facilitation.
Okay.
In other words, you can still continue with your what you call interaction with your academic facilitator online after the session.
I see.
So if you still have problems, you can still continue. You can go into the discussion forum. You can go to chat forum. We have a what you call a cafe where you can go and talk. Empty talk, or you can go into discussion forum to talk more intellectual interaction with your peers as well as your instructor. So that's how we support the what you call the learning. We have over a semester scheduled periods for you to come and for the face-to-face instruction, and then we give you time for you to prepare for the what they call for the final examination before you come for the final examination itself.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. And we will go for another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more on this matter right here on Biz Talk. Right, thanks for staying with us on Biz Talk. If you have any comments, you can email us at biztalk@bernama-tv.com, or you can tweet us at biztalk502, or you can call us at 0326937008. And today we're talking about expansion of distant learning with Professor Dato Dr. Ansary Ahmed, the President and CEO of AeU University, or AeU in short. So we also have opinions from students, and let's take a look at the clip right now.
Actually, I prefer going to the classes. One of the main reason is because there is the greater interaction with the students, with the teacher. Because there are some very good online platforms that can bring up some kind of interaction, but the physical interaction, I feel it's quite important in teaching. And because the only things is not the academic part, we also need to learn some social skills and these things.
I think I prefer traditional studies because I feel more enjoy if we have class, we have face-to-face with the lecturer, and also I think we can become the bonding between the lecturer and also the student. It become more close, and also I believe that during the class we can generate more ideas. We can share ideas compared to using the online method.
If you go to online, of course, you can work at your convenience, you can do your education at home. However, the privileges of having physical contact and face-to-face contact with your professors, teachers, will not be available to you.
I choose the traditional because I can visual interaction, can know how the teacher, the lecturer teach. Then if I don't understanding, I can ask the lecturer.
I definitely prefer online because I think I can study anywhere, anytime, and the amount of information is limitless, lah. And as compared to traditional, it depends on. It's very restricted. I feel the traditional one. So in fact, I'm teaching in IPG. I myself, I do have that online learning bit for my students. So definitely I am for online learning. And I think if we don't start online learning, we will be way back. All the other countries are into this online learning.
That's kind of interesting. Most of them said they prefer in the classes, except for the last one, which she made a very good point. If we don't go into e-learning, we'll be very backwards in terms of what the world is right now. Your opinion, Dato?
Okay, if I can be a little mischievous here,
okay,
kind of thing. I would say that the what you call the people you sampled are a bit prejudiced and biased.
Right.
Is because they're conventional students in a conventional university to start with.
Okay.
All right. But being more serious, on more serious notes,
right,
let's look at ODL in specifically.
Right.
It is highly suitable for the adult learner,
okay,
who like to upgrade and upskill themselves. It is not so suitable for a fresh school leaver.
Okay.
The fresh school leaver needs to go into a campus kind of environment and develop their personality, character, social skills, etc., and all that kind of thing.
Right.
So there's a difference between the two. But having said that, in certain countries in the world, they actually have e-learning right from kindergarten, moving up. As because we now have entered into the age of the digital native.
Okay.
Mark Francis says it very well.
Right.
We're the age of a digital native. We cannot be using old-fashioned methods to teach these new clients.
Yes.
All right. So these new clients are iPad savvy, they are iPod savvy, etc., kind of thing.
Right.
So they would like to interact with such kind of devices to learn.
Which is easy.
You know,
accessible.
it's easy anytime, anywhere, at their own convenience, kind of thing.
Right.
So for serious learning, it's not saying that the conventional way is better. It depends on what is most suited for your style of learning.
Right.
So I think we should customize and personalize the learning rather than have mass education as what conventional universities are doing.
Right.
The conventional universities, forgive me for saying this, is actually an industrial old model.
Right.
It's batching. You come into a cohort, you batch out, kind of thing. Peter Senge says this very well, that we will fail, for the future generation if we keep them in batches. We got to allow each individual to develop at their own pace.
Right.
Now, to allow them to develop at their own pace, there's no other better methodology than to use the distance education and online learning methodology.
Right.
Because they can pace their own studying, they can pace their own learning. And they're not forced to come at 8 o'clock lecture.
Right.
When it's the wrong time, and when the mind is just not there, they just can't study. Or come at 9 o'clock lecture when actually they're thinking of having watching the football match kind of thing. So if you're talking within conventional and what you call online learning, there's a big difference between the two.
Yes.
And depends very much on the learner. Do they want structured learning, industrial-based learning, or do they want more flexibility in their learning, where they are empowered to control their own learning? Now, between these two, of course, the fresh school leaver is better to structure them.
Yes.
But the adult learner is better to give the flexibility and empower them. So that's my comment on those comments that came through.
Especially when they're working.
But the other thing that I think that we need to realize is that knowledge is now everywhere.
Yes.
All right. it is no more the monopoly of professors and universities.
Yes.
And therefore, we should not deny our learners from learning from every possible source what they would like to learn.
Right.
And that can only happen if they're empowered through technology to do so.
Okay.
You know, so they don't even have to travel to the library. They can stay at home at a click of a button. They can access
the whole
that,
library
exactly for themselves.
Okay. Now let's talk about AEU and the being part of the ETP. What are you trying to achieve, basically?
When we were involved with the laboratory, education laboratory, one of the things that was discussed in the laboratory was how do we expand what they call education in Malaysia for us to become a major player in international higher education.
Okay.
At that time, we were, I think, the 12th in the world. Now we are 10th in the world as far as destination for higher education is concerned among international students.
Okay.
So when we were discussing at the lab, it was felt that, look, we have got a platform called AeU University, which was established much earlier, because established in 2007.
Okay.
And you know, it was meant to be international in nature. It was, you know, it's got already the 31 countries support.
Yes.
So why don't you use this as a platform to internationalize our what they call our higher education, and to bring it to a broader global what they call audience. So that was the idea of us getting involved with the ETP, and so we were given EPP 6 status, expanding international distance education kind of thing. Our objective was to encourage the local universities, polytechnics, colleges kind of thing, to offer their programs via this platform internationally.
Right.
All right. So that has been the what they call the objective, and we have got specific GNIs, etc. kind of thing. We have signed up with a few universities and colleges to do so, even with some institutions which are private in nature to do so. And this is what we are developing and moving in, because ultimately when you do this, you are actually bringing income to Malaysia.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, you're making Malaysian known to a new what they call segment of society, of the global society, who cannot travel themselves for various reasons. Because the adult worker in another country cannot take time out, you know, to come and just study in Malaysia. But he can still study that same program from a university in Malaysia via AEU in his country. So that was the idea of the APP. So I think it's an exciting prospect for global students
to be a part of the ETP as well. Okay, we'll take another short break, and when we come back, we'll discuss more on this matter right here on Biz Talk. Right, thanks for staying with us on Biz Talk. If you have any comments, you can email us at biztalk@bernama-tv.com, or you can tweet us at biztalk502, or you can call us at 0326937008. And today we're talking about expansion of distant learning with Professor Dato Dr. Ansary Ahmed, the President and CEO of AeU University. Now, Dato, we also have a couple of Twitter questions from our Twitter viewers. So let's take a look at our Twitter question number 1. Right, this is from Ada Shahila. I found that studying online is boring and I have no motivation. Do you have ways to overcome this, Dato?
I think that's a very fair comment, because studying online, you can be very lonely.
Okay.
You're on your own in your home or wherever you are.
Yes.
And you need constant motivation to be engaged.
Yes.
So the key to it is having content which is engaging.
Right.
So you must have learning content which is engaging. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two is you must have peers or study groups to help you.
Right.
In order to keep you motivated, because you will come across concepts which may be confounding and you need clarification, etc. kind of thing. You may find issues that you would like to discuss with others kind of thing, and therefore you should be active in the discussion forum.
Okay.
You should also be interacting with your facilitator at the scheduled times.
Right.
So the key to elevating what they call boredom and motivation are two things.
Right.
One is to ensure that when you study online, because research has shown that you don't spend more than 20 minutes at a time.
Yes.
All right. Because when you stare at the screen for 20 minutes, you get bored after some time. You will switch on to something else.
Yes.
Two is switch and switch back. Switch on to something else and switch back.
Okay.
All right. So don't try to take a 1 hour lesson continuously.
Right.
So build it up into small blocks according to your attention span. That's very, Very important. Secondly is that do not forget the human interaction component. So continue with the human interaction component as much as you can while you're doing your online material. That's why you blend it, kind of thing. So there are very few people, and I've been throughout the world in this, and there have been many studies on this. There are very few people who can take everything totally virtual.
Yes.
Because we are humans.
Right.
It is our nature that we need to interact.
Yes.
So that's the key to it.
Right. Okay. Any other methods that you think that's going to help studies?
Yeah, in terms of your particular subject matter that you're doing, on the particular topic that you're doing, take the pre-test first.
Okay.
Test yourself and see where your knowledge is.
Right.
You know, if you're not there, don't attempt to go through it. You know, go to something simpler. Now there are new tools coming out which has got artificial intelligence in them. In other words, you know, when you take the what you call your pre-test, or you take any test within the module itself, it will tell you where you are, at which level you are, and to make suggestions of to go back to which page and go and revise that in order to strengthen your your fundamentals before you come back to this. So you can flip-flop between the two.
Right.
I think what happens in most cases is that when they talk about e-learning, unfortunately, they think that digitized text is e-learning.
Yes.
Digitized text is the most boring thing that you can you can look at. But videos are much more interesting. Interactivity is much more interesting kind of thing. So I think when I mentioned just now earlier about the content, is what kind of content that you're having when you're doing the e-learning. That's why we try to make our content as interesting, as engaging, and as motivating, because the learner needs to be motivated from time to time. So when they get something right, say, well done, great, keep going, etc. kind of thing. That has got to keep going. Otherwise, you will give up and you will stop very soon.
Okay. Now let's take a look at our Twitter question number 2. This is from Stanley Chong. Do you have CSR to support underprivileged students? To you.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We have several what you call financial support system that we have for students. For those who are underprivileged and those who are what they call in some way incapacitated, etc. kind of thing, we give as much as 75% discount on the fees, which is a huge amount.
Right.
For those who are retired government servants, we give them 50% discount on that. And there are also cases in which we just waive the fees because we just want them to be with us. We just waive the fees, kind of thing.
Is there a requirement for them to get that?
So it all depends on what will they be an asset to us as well. Being a student, and will they add to the community of learners that we have?
Okay.
And therefore we feel that we would like you to join us, kind of thing.
Okay.
And in those cases, we say okay, we will do away.
Are you going to do roadshows in rural places as well?
You have raised this issue of remote and rural a couple of times.
Because
with the perhaps the wrong notion.
I see.
That e-learning can only be done in the urban, what they call cities and urban places, kind of thing. No, actually, right now we have got students as far away as on islands, about 4 hours boat ride in Sabah and Sarawak, studying with us. We got students in Maldives studying with us, and you know how big Maldives is. It's huge, almost what they call 1,000 islands, spread over I don't know how many thousand kilometers, kind of thing. So we can actually reach out to remote as well as rural areas. There's no problem at all.
Right.
And we actually have learning centers. We have a learning center in Kota Marudu, for example.
Okay.
And I was just having all those problems, with nutrition. Now that's quite rural.
Right.
To get to Kota Marudu, and we have students, out in the islands coming to Kota Marudu to study with us, and you'll be surprised. Most of them can have smartphones.
Okay.
And if you have a smartphone, you can access to our material already. You don't need what you call to have a computer to access to our material. And the very fact that we are, been established to serve the people of Asia, and there are many Asian countries which are less endowed technologically than Malaysia, or telecommunications-wise in terms of Malaysia.
Right.
And we can still reach out to them because, as I said, we use appropriate technology. If you have a dial-up, you don't need a broadband. If you have a dial-up 256, you can access our material
as long
already.
as you get into the internet, it's going to be fine. Okay, we are almost to the end of the program, so probably you can tell us a little bit on what is in store in the future for AeU?
In the very near future, we are busy doing a roadshow for teachers because we are involved with a project for the upgrading of primary school teachers, the Ministry of Education. So they have scheduled a number of what they call roadshows in several towns, both in Peninsula as well as Sabah and Sarawak. That's what we are doing. We are engaged also with our international partners, so running some programs there, and so we just sent our staff over, and we're sending a few more over to Indonesia and places like that to get things going. And we are very soon going to launch our Center for English Teacher Training, because we believe that that's an area to go into, because the master plan and the blueprint for education indicates more and more ICT enhanced learning, what they call e-based training, etc. kind of thing. So we're establishing that center, and we hope to get engaged more and more in that area. We have been using the iPad as a learning device with our teachers, and we want to expand the use of the tablet to encourage more collaborative learning, because I think the future of learning all over the world, people are talking about collaborative learning rather than didactic learning. I think didactic learning has got its heyday. We are now looking at learners who want to be engaged with each other. The social, what you call media, allows them for the engagement, and they like interactivity, and therefore we've got to use more and more of this kind of learning devices that enables them to do so. And we're also moving out from text. We are also asking them to submit their material via videos or PowerPoints or other forms.
Videos, that's interesting.
Because the world is changing. The learner today is a prosumer, meaning that he is a producer as well as a consumer. The learner of yesterday, which you call a student, was a consumer, where he consumed whatever the professor was getting out, kind of thing. So we accept the fact that the learners are prosumers, and therefore our pedagogy too should now what they call encompass and make it inclusive as a prosumer.
And thank you, Dato, for being with us and enlightening us for today's topic. And thank you so much for tuning in to Biz Talk. And until we meet again real soon, I'm Surati Sanusi. Goodbye.